This video is about the top 10 presidents who should have resigned, excluding, Nixon, because, he resigned in real life. Coming at number 10, and no pun intended, Bill Clinton. Now, Bill Clinton, no matter what you feel about the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, whether you feel like it was a joke, a witch hunt, he did, however, lie to the public when he said that he had no sexual contact with her. And that is unacceptable when it comes to a president. Now, I feel like he should have resigned and not have been went through Congress and the House because it only made them look petty and made it look like a witch hunt. But other than that, he should have resigned for lying because you, as a regular citizen, if you lie, you get a year in jail. So, as a president, he should have much more harsher punishments, as in he shouldn't be president anymore. Coming in at number 9, it's Eisenhower. Now, President Eisenhower shouldn't have resigned because of any personal issues or what have you, or any personal foibles. He should have resigned because he had a heart attack and he was even hospitalized at one point. So, guess what? He wasn't really fit for the office because if you could have a heart attack at his age, then arguably he should have passed the mantle to none other than Nixon. And I feel that Nixon, in his young career, wouldn't have tried crooked things such as Watergate or to cover up a Watergate situation, and thus would have been a better president. So, yes, President Ike, he had bad health and even had a heart attack that made Nixon the temporary acting president for a bit. So, yes, he should have resigned. Coming in at number 8, it's Donald Trump. Now, President Donald Trump has multiple felonies, which should disqualify him to be president. Now, I don't really care to the to how legit these felonies are, or whether it's politically motivated. We know it's politically motivated, but it's on both sides. The crime was committed because of politics, and the prosecution was committed because of politics. But a man with over 10 felonies shouldn't be president. He should somehow absolved those felonies or found innocent of each charges before he becomes president of the United States. I'm sorry. Coming in at number 7, it's none other than Joe Biden. Joe Biden was not mentally fit to become president, let alone be president. He should have resigned a long time ago during his term and allowed Kamala Harris to reign the presidency. But he wanted to grip and hold on to power, and even was a liar because he said that he wouldn't absolve his son from a crime, but he did. So he's as grimy as a Trump or anybody else for lying. So, yes, he should have resigned as president. He was not mentally fit. Coming in at number 6, it's Franklin Pierce. Now, Franklin Pierce, throughout his presidency, suffered from depression, and I understand why. One of his family members, I believe his son, died, and he was a chronic alcoholic. And there was other tragedies happening throughout his life, let alone presidency. And I feel like crippling depression definitely made him unable to become president, let alone reign as the president. I feel bad for him, but tough luck. He should have passed the mantle to somebody else to be president. He was not mentally stable enough to be president, and probably he knew that. So he should have resigned and give the mantle to somebody else. Coming in at number 5 is none other than Ronald Reagan. Now, I am a personal fan of Ronald Reagan, but I feel like towards the second term of his administration, he should have resigned because he was struggling with Alzheimer's, and he openly admit he did not know what was happening with the Iran Contra affair. So if you're that ignorant to where tragedies can fly under your nose, then I would say that you weren't mentally coherent enough to be president. So he should have resigned. He should have gave the mantle to George W. Bush, which is my strong feeling that George W. Bush, being a former head of the FBI, had something to do with Iran Contra. But I digress. Maybe George W. Bush should have resigned also because he was kind of, in my mind, a crook and a criminal, George H.W. Bush. But regardless, if you had Alzheimer's or some type of mentally diminished throughout your presidency, then you should have became president. You should have just resigned honorably and allowed another person to become president. Coming in at number 4 is Donald Trump. Yes, he gets 2 slots on here. Donald Trump, during his first term, he should have resigned because of January 6th. And during his second term, he pardoned those criminals. I'm shocked he didn't pardon himself from these federal crimes, but we could wait towards the end of his second term. Maybe he's going to pardon himself, and maybe the Supreme Court would sign off on it. I don't know. But regardless, during his first term, with the whole January 6th situation, he should have resigned. I know he only had a few days left, but he was impeached by the House when he only had a few days left. And he didn't even meet Joe Biden, who I also think should have resigned, to even do the whole transfer of power thing honorably. But yes, that first term, he should have resigned. He should have had President Mike Pence in office for a few days, and then he could have took the reins from there. Mike Pence, I'm pretty sure he, as an honorable man, would have been at the inauguration. But coming in at number 3 is Andrew Johnson. Yes, he should have resigned, especially since he was acquitted from the Senate by 1 vote. But yes, he should have resigned. He was against the radical Republicans and basically the legacy of Lincoln. So yes, he should have definitely resigned. His presidency only had one real accomplishment, the whole buying of Antarctica. But other than that, should have resigned. Very much wasn't capable to be president. Was very too amicable towards the traitors who basically was the Confederacy. So definitely should have resigned. Nobody liked him. Wasn't working with the Congress, and his own party, the Democrats, didn't trust him because he teamed up with Lincoln. So he didn't have any place whatsoever as president. Definitely should have resigned. Number 2 is James Buchanan. Now, funny enough, his name has cannon in it, but he never touched the cannon. To save the North, to save the Union, he did squat. During his last few months, he had tons of Southern states saying that they resigned from the Union, saying that they break off. And instead of him doing any further action like gathering up troops or meeting with Lincoln to see what the strategy is and see how he can hand the powers to Lincoln and getting him prepared with an already ready army, he did nothing. He should have resigned. Worst lame duck president ever. arguably the worst president ever. The only thing interesting is people presume he was gay, but back then, people, men especially, was open with their feelings towards their homie and stuff like that. And times were strange back then, and they were more romantic. Up until recently, people was very romantic with their verbiage, kind of like a young thug thing. But and the number one president that should have resigned is none other than Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson definitely is the number one president who should have resigned because during his second term he had a stroke, which kept him in enabled for several years to the point where his wife was handling all his duties. So he was definitely enabled. He was basically disabled at this point, and he was at no real function brain wise. So definitely should have resigned. Definitely should have passed the post. I mean, a lot of things are just health reasons. Like Ike, I actually like Ike, but if you're gonna have a heart attacks could disable you, and it could definitely disqualify you from being president, or should ideally disqualify you from continuing being president. So Woodrow Wilson, he had a heart attack towards the second term of his presidency, made him ignoble. So his wife basically took his mantle, and his team should have manned up and convinced Wilson to basically withdraw as president because he could not do his presidential duties. There's my list. Tell me if you like it or not. I'm out.